Welcome to Never Rewrite. I'm Isaac Askew.
And I'm Jeffrey Sherman. And today we're going to put up predictions about the proposed Social Security rewrite that was recently discussed. And our main we're going to discuss the rewrite, and you'll not be surprised to know that we think it's a terrible idea. But we also want to put our predictions out about the future so that we can then see if we're right about how this all goes. Because one of our theories is that rewrites follow a very predictable pattern. So
let's start with what was the main proposal for the article, and what was the timeline suggested?
So in the Wired article, it said that the DOGE people who have now embedded themselves in the Social Security Administration want to rewrite I think it said 40 million lines of COBOL into a modern language. I think it said Java.
Yeah, that's what I read.
In several months. And it didn't say why, which I thought was a big miss. Because it's not clear why they're doing this. Because they could be doing it because it's hard to find COBOL programmers. So that's a reason to switch languages. It could be because the COBOL is a mess, right? And it's just they want to throw away this giant messy code base and replace it with a good code base. It could be to save money.
Or it could be dumber reasons like it's old, so therefore it's bad, and modern and new is nice and easier to understand and nice and clean.
I think that was the second one. That's a less generous version of the second one of.
Got you.
We don't understand. It's hard to understand this code because it's so old. Ignoring the fact that part of the most of that problem would be you can't find COBOL developers because I did some reading, and it sounds like the code is not terrible. Like it's 60-year-old COBOL code that has been maintained continuously by the government with some major overhauls over the years. And so, from what I was reading, it's not terrible COBOL code. It's incredibly complex, and it's COBOL. And those are the... But anyway, the article doesn't go into why. Is it to save money? Is it because you can't hire COBOL developers? Or is it because the code is bad and you want to rewrite it in something not bad?
Well, it's the Department of Government Efficiency. So the implication is that it's old and terrible and inefficient.
Yes.
And they've got ways to make it efficient.
Well, I thought we could discuss all three options and whether or not they held any water. So let's start with the first one, right? It's COBOL. As long as I have been a professional programmer, which is 25 years, the joke has been that all the COBOL developers are aging out and you're not going to be able to hire more. And so you better get off anything COBOL before it's too late. You can't hire anyone. At this point, I want to call that a fallacy. If you're willing to hire someone to do COBOL work, there are decent developers out there who are willing to be paid to learn to do COBOL and do COBOL.
Yeah. I can agree with that too.
To me, it especially would appeal to the kinds of people who would want a government job of, hey, I want to go in, I want a low stress, very stable environment, before this current administration. I want to go in, I want to do my job, I want to go home. I'm willing to forego the possibility of getting rich in Silicon Valley in exchange for, I'm going to go in, work my 40 hours, go home, and then have a pension after 40 years.
Right.
And that appeals to a reasonable number of people. And they would be happy to take, if your goal is to get a job and keep it, learning an obscure programming language is probably fine.
Yeah, I imagine especially too, like if you wanted to make a name for yourself now with this setup, the idea that, if I learn this language or, if I do a really good job at it, I'm one of the developers that helped write a very, or maintain a very important piece of Social Security. That seems like kind of
Yeah, I
a
mean
great
that would
resume
be
item.
appealing if people say, "Oh, what do you do?" You're like, "Oh, I'm the head programmer on the Social Security Administration."
Assuming you did a good job.
Yeah, assuming you. Well, you wouldn't last very long if you didn't do a good job. But I send out checks,
Yeah.
millions of dollars in checks every month to 40 million people. Probably billions of dollars in checks every month to 40 million people. Right? That could be cool. So I don't think that the argument that you can't get COBOL developers holds water.
Yeah. Especially because, again, like if they need to find somebody for this to make a point and like fix whatever was inefficient,
Mm-hmm.
they've got the money for it. They've got funding for it. It's like the
Well, they've
lack of
also got
funding
the
or anything.
stability, like long-term stability, right? If you,
Mm-hmm.
if a startup in Silicon Valley is like, oh, we need you to spend the next 2 years learning this crazy language we developed. Let's go with, say, R, right? If you make, that's a hard pitch. You're like, oh, you got to learn to specialize in R, and maybe R is not going to be around in 2 years. There's new languages appear and disappear without a trace all the time. But this is the U.S. government.
Mm-hmm.
It's been there 60 years, and if they did manage to get off COBOL, they would retrain you on something else.
Yeah. So that one doesn't hold water. What about the next one?
Okay, the next one would be save money, right? If you took your COBOL and you snapped your fingers and you replaced it with Java, would that save you money? Ignoring the difficulties of the transition.
Yeah.
And I don't think it would. There was a time period in the 90s when it would have, when your COBOL was actually running on big iron, literal IBM mainframes,
Mm-hmm.
and those mainframes were big and expensive, and you had to have a lot of them. And there was this whole revolution that started in the 90s of small Linux machines, virtualization, and it was much cheaper to run your stuff on Linux machines than it was to run it on big iron. And I don't think that holds water here because, one, it's all virtualized now anyway. Like, nobody has big iron machines. You have virtual big iron machines that are running on inexpensive, Intel or AMD chips.
Mm-hmm.
The jobs are all, instead of, oh, well, if you need to buy a $80 million computer to run this little job, it doesn't make, not cost effective. But again, Social Security is huge.
Yeah.
So they are more than capable of filling those giant machines and not losing out on just having the hardware sitting idle. And quite frankly, Java is not as performant as something like COBOL because COBOL is a lower level language.
Right.
So you're not likely to reduce the amount of compute it takes.
Makes sense.
So I think and then the next question would be, well, oh, okay, yes, maybe you're not going to save on compute, but maybe you save on programmers.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this is the U.S. government, strict pay ranges for the various people. So unless you think that you can get fewer people, significantly fewer people, you're not going to save any money if you could magically switch from COBOL to Java. You would have, a team of however many hundreds of people.
Right. But even still, like when you think about something as massive as Social Security, even if you halved the amount of people that you needed to maintain it, what are you really saving versus the power of the service that you're providing for the people anyway? Like if you're trying to cut some money here and there, I imagine a lot of the inefficiency is probably not going to be in the development area of that. Like if
right, yeah, cutting. Programmers may be expensive, but even cutting 100 of them isn't going to save you any significant amount
it's
of
not
money.
like it's going to save you, $500 million if you cut 100, developers.
Right. If you were trying to save money by cutting people in Social Security, you would want it to be somehow to make your operations leaner.
Yeah.
Right, which is another thing that they are doing, but we haven't covered because it's not a rewrite. But like a thing that the DOGE people are doing is they're closing local offices and telling people to use the phone or the internet. Questionable operational strategy, but that will save you some money. But that has nothing to do with the code.
Okay. Yeah, nothing to do with why you would need to rewrite the entire thing and
Right.
whatever. Makes sense. So, yeah. So that one doesn't hold a lot of water either.
Right. Okay, so we're down to last is the COBOL is bad, whether it's because it's COBOL or because the code is bad. And if we rewrite it in Java, it will be better. And I don't know that we know that it's Java, but any modern programming language.
Yeah, they just kind of like threw out a more modern language.
Well, if you rewrote it in Java or you rewrote it in .NET or Scala or, I don't know, Ruby. I don't think Ruby has the memory management you'd need. Or C, like any of those languages, any modern language, effectively would be the same thing. And let's assume, for the sake of argument, that the code is bad and it would be better in a modern language. Just for the moment.
Okay.
The problem with what they're doing, right? The proposal to do it in a couple months with a few people is the intention to use AI to do a lot of the heavy lifting. And that isn't inherently bad, right? Like, I'm not anti-AI, but if you have AI replace a pile of bad COBOL with in Java, right, with no understanding, but it's got let's assume there's tests. We're going to do a one-to-one transition. I have a pile of terrible COBOL. At the other end, I'm going to have a pile of terrible Java. Because I don't understand this terrible COBOL, but I know the inputs and outputs. And at the other side, I have now terrible Java, and I can prove that the inputs and outputs are the same.
Yep.
And this is the best case scenario for an AI rewrite is I took something that I didn't understand and couldn't maintain, and I transformed it into a new language, but I still don't understand it, and I still can't maintain it.
And even worse, the people that could have understood the old system now having to learn it in Java, it makes it even more difficult for them. If they
the people who did know the system and could maintain it now can't maintain it.
Yeah. Unless they learn Java and the new paradigms.
Yeah, they can learn, but it's not, again, if you're trying to save money or be more efficient in some way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Doing a AI rewrite, if it worked perfectly, which again it won't, but if it worked perfectly, and I'm not anti-AI, I'm saying if it was 95% correct, that's not perfect. That would be great.
Yeah.
But it's not perfect, and it's not, anyway, so I don't think.
Also, an interesting thing too here, even with a port or a one-to-one port or AI or whatever, however you want to do it, the code bases that you and I have worked in over the years, like when we help a company refactor a bunch of legacy code, that code base, I think the oldest one I've touched, it was like a company started in 2004 and I was there in 2016. So some of the earliest code was from from 12 years prior. That's pretty old compared to when I'm getting there. And even some of the more recent ones I've touched, the legacy code was actually only 4 years old, but it was still such a mess they've made in 4 years, that kind of thing. Imagine 60 years of bug fixes, of patches, of, having to extend it for whatever administration changes needed to extend. 60 years of legacy understanding of a system. That would be the oldest system I'd ever touch. Right?
Yeah, I think my record's 25-year-old code.
Right.
And especially here where if you're working in SaaS or whatever, you could change how this thing is implemented, and you could reason about it. You could go talk to the product group. In something like Social Security, it's implemented in ways that are constrained by laws. You can't optimize a lot of this business logic and have it be okay, because a lot of times there are reasons, legal reasons why the code was written the way it was.
Right. It kind of reminds me of the printer story you had a while back.
Yes. In my head, I was thinking similar. So I worked in the mortgage industry a decade ago, And one of the constraints was that if you were lending money in Kentucky, only someone who was legally licensed to do a mortgage in Kentucky was allowed to print documents.
Yeah.
And so we needed to expend effort to make sure that people who didn't have a license could work on the documents, they could view the documents, they could modify the documents, but they weren't allowed to print them. And we need to show that we had done this.
Yeah.
And it's irrational because it wouldn't stop someone who was malicious from printing these documents because they could print screen and then print the print screen.
True.
But we needed to show, like, hey, we disabled it. No one is going to do this accidentally.
Yeah. It was you did your due diligence trying to adhere to the laws. You can at least prove that you tried to adhere to it. Whereas 60 years of Social Security code that you just want to rewrite to make more efficient, asterisk. Who knows what other laws, like you're talking about, over the years that made the code crafted the way it was because it moved money a certain way, or like this account's like for benefit of account versus this other type of bank thing, you know, that you have to move it here first or it can't stay here. This one can get interest or this one can't, you know, like all the weird loopholes. Who knows?
Well, we're still, because this is human lifespan stuff. Social Security, when it started in the 30s, didn't cover everyone. And it expanded. It wasn't until the 60s, I think, that everyone, like basically you were born, you got a Social Security number and move along. And so you have people who, there might be special rules about literally grandfathering people in of, oh, well, you weren't there when Social Security was started or when it was, it's like you were already had so many years of your employment going when you became eligible to start paying into Social Security. And so then there's going to be rules about that.
Yeah.
If you wait long enough, those people will die.
Yeah,
we're not even close to there yet.
It's the Social Security equivalent of if customer ID equals 3, do something different, and you just have to know what that's supposed to be.
Right. Yeah, well, one thing the article pointed out was the Social Security code is apparently a monolith. Shocker. Well, because it's literally ran on mainframes. But it talked about, like, there's code that creates Social Security numbers that's tightly coupled in with the code that actually calculates benefits, which actually prints checks. And if I was going to try to do a rewrite, like the first thing I would try for would be, okay, new Social Security numbers would be the thing I would pull out first. Because if there's a problem, you've got 65 years to fix it.
True.
Little Johnny was born and his Social Security number is a little messed up. Okay, we got 65 years to deal with that before Johnny expects any money. So, like, nothing's on fire.
This is just such a fun problem.
Right? Like, but I mean, I'm just thinking, like, if I was going to actually try to do this, I would break it down.
Yeah, totally.
Something. I would pull out something, and that's got a very long fuse. And so that's where I would probably start. And I wouldn't go. So anyway, I think we are going long, and we haven't even talked about our predictions. We've just talked about how none of the reason we can't come up with a reason why this makes sense.
Yeah. So
especially
maybe in the coming days there'll be some more articles to outline, why they want to do it this way. But so far, not a lot of good reasons to do it.
Right. The best reasons are questionable, and they don't make sense given the way that they are going to do it. Right? They could be like, oh, well, oil, creates pollution, which contributes to global warming. So we're going to replace this, cars based off oil with cars based off coal. Like,
right. Okay. So, if anything, this sounds like it makes things a little less efficient. Like, you're just wasting money, and we have predictions on how rewrites go.
Yes.
So here's something interesting too. When we talk about rewrites, one of the limiting factors is money. We talk about how much money will be consumed during this process, and 99% of the time it will fail. Sometimes when it does succeed, from the one story I think that we had, Khan Academy, or maybe there's one other one too in the backlog, it's a lot of money to make it happen, right? So we've never had a case where we've had, a literal billionaire
Well,
who
it's not Musk, it's the government, so it's a trillionaire.
True. It's a trillionaire amount of money to make something happen. So whether or not it's efficient, whether or not it makes sense, is a rewrite more likely if you have unlimited money, which is
Well,
not a
there's a
factor.
secondary part to that.
All right.
There's a timer.
Oh yeah. Was it 3 months?
Because in 2028 we'll have elections,
Oh, that kind of timer. I see.
and by 2029 there will be a new president because Trump can't run again. And so in 2029, especially if it's a Democratic president, the project, if it's not done, will be canceled. And if it's a Republican president, the project will also probably be canceled because it's a terrible idea and this is a good way to scrap it. So my first prediction is if the project is not in production, which it won't be, then it will not survive the change in administration that comes in 2029.
Okay. Prediction number one.
My next prediction is they are going to actually try to put it in production. They're going to do the AI rewrite.
Okay.
And within the next 6 months, so it is April, so I am saying by Halloween, they will have tried to shift Social Security, the check printing part of Social Security, from the COBOL to the new thing, and it will have failed spectacularly, and they will have rolled back.
Okay.
Right. That they will. My prediction is they will have rushed too fast and pushed it into production. It will fail, and like people won't get their checks. And so the political blowback, right? The customer feedback is going to be so bad they're going to roll back, and that will also be a disaster.
The largest customer feedback in America.
Right? You've got 40 million customers. A not funny prediction is 40 million people get Social Security checks. 25% of them have no other income and are living paycheck to paycheck, according to the stats. So that's 10 million people. Mm-hmm. When they push this thing out and it screws up, you are going to have people missing their checks who are living hand to mouth, and they're going to not get their medicine. They're not going to eat. They're going to get evicted. It's going to set off tumbling effects. And I would predict that hundreds to thousands of people are going to die prematurely because their money flow was interrupted.
Wow. That is a sobering prediction.
Yes. It's not a good prediction. Or rather, it's a very specific prediction, but it's not a good... Anyway.
I have a lazier prediction.
Okay.
I don't know when they're going to start this project, but they said they were going to try to do it in 3 months, which I think is kind of ridiculous. But my lazier prediction is they're going to pick a small piece of it, rewrite it, and call it a success, and say they did rewrite everything. We won't know we won't be any the wiser. We don't know. We can't see the code. They're going to be like, they're going to just publish it as a success. We totally rewrote Social Security, and they really didn't.
Yes, that's a good one. Just lie about it. Declare success. Yeah. Right, the small piece that I suggest, right? Rewrite the piece that generates Social Security numbers.
Yeah, something like that. Well, one thing I do want to get ahead of, because I can see some people, if they watch the whole episode and they go, well, you guys said, why did they want to rewrite it? What about all these people who are 250 years old? The system's clearly flawed. That's why they want to rewrite it. They want to get rid of all the weird code that's making people 250 years old. And I think you and I have read some bits about, why that's, first of all, clearly bullshit, and two, how that happens. But what is your response to that to get ahead of it? Because I think that people are going to be like, well, that's the reason they want to rewrite it. Why didn't Jeffrey and Isaac talk about that?
So that's a good point. And that it's not a problem with the code, it's a problem with dirty data. Mm-hmm. Right? If you, in this case, the 150-year-old people, translates to, we don't have a birthday in the system for them. And so that's, if your birthday is null, then it was 150 years ago. It's like 1875 or something.
Paris something time, yeah.
Yeah, that's just how COBOL is.
1875, yeah.
Right. If you don't have time a date in a Unix system, it's December 31st, 1969.
Right. Yeah. So it's the equivalent of a default date, and then suddenly that default weird date makes it look like you're that old, even though you're not.
Right.
And we know we've seen weird date issues in code before. This is not
Oh my
malicious.
God. Date time is the thing that is so hard that people who aren't developers don't understand.
You're right. So I think that's a good thing to kind of sell to people. I know right now our podcast is targeted towards people who are a little bit tech savvy, but the common folk who go, what does that mean? Like I think it's a selling point to them. And I think that's kind of why they were hitting on this. Look at all this inefficiency we found, because it does sound bad if you don't really understand how dates work, which kind of like dates work in that system, but which makes me very people say don't attribute to malice where there's ignorance or something like that. I'm very confused as to how people who are tech savvy looking into this could make that mistake. I think like I'm struggling to attribute ignorance to that.
The generous answer is there are myopic people who think that the answer to every problem is code. So the 150-year-old people, it's a data problem, right? You have people who have no birthday. And I would say, okay, well, you have a giant staff of people at Social Security. They're in all the large cities in every state. Print out a list of all the people who don't have birthdays. Dispatch Social Security workers to wherever those checks are getting mailed. Get in contact with the people whose data is bad and fix the data.
Yeah.
And that would be infinitely cheaper than rewriting the whole system.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
But that's not a code solution. And there are people who literally, and I'm being generous, have myopic blinders and they can't see any solution that isn't code. Because if you have a code solution, and I think this is an important piece, it's a no empathy solution. So if you say, oh, well, this person can't possibly be 150 years old because no human has ever lived to 150, and therefore I'm going to invalidate this record.
Right.
That's the code solution. And so this person who probably through no fault of their own has cruddy data, now they're invalidated. Yeah. And so they won't get a check. And then that person has to fix it themselves. You push your data problems onto the consumer.
And it's probably likely that the older the person is, more likely that for some reason their birth date wasn't collected. So getting those people, the oldest people, to try to go in and solve a computer problem and give us this data when they're trying to collect a Social Security check at like 90, but they didn't have a birth date for whatever reason, because
whatever reason. Right. It doesn't matter how old they are. You've got 45 years of work experience. So they qualify because they paid the taxes and you know that. It doesn't. Anyway, but at the same time, they've already started closing regional offices because they want to push people out of in-person contact because that's expensive and into phone and less than phone computer support.
Yeah.
So the generous version is that they're myopic and they don't have any empathy. The less generous version is they are intentionally creating a situation where some percentage of people fall off of Social Security, which is a huge savings, if you want to call it that. Because if you have 40 million people and you create a barrier and you knock 500,000 of them off, right? That's a little more than 1%.
That's pretty dark.
That's a lot of savings. That's a very dark interpretation.
Honestly, I feel like knowing that the people there are somewhat tech savvy, even if we don't agree with their methods, but they do know about technology, I can't see an ignorance argument being made here. And I'm usually a pretty nice and forgiving person.
I think it's the no empathy argument more than
I think it is. Especially because Elon Musk is saying that empathy is one of the biggest flaws of Americans or something like that. I think he was quoted saying something similar to that, tangential to that.
I think their thinking isn't we're going to push people off and save money by screwing them. It's, hey, mistakes will happen, and then the people can use the internet, use the website to fix it. Ignoring the fact that these aren't people who can't do that.
Yeah. And then like they're living paycheck to paycheck. They can't get in contact with somebody because the office is closed. They don't have any money, and they die.
Yes.
That's the dark version. Sorry, listener, but
well,
honestly,
that's the inevitable outcome.
Yes.
Right. The positive version is they are pushing the pain of the rewrite from themselves onto the consumer. Right. They're pushing pain. They're pushing the problem of their dirty data onto the customer. Is the neutral way to say it. The dark version is they don't care that they're going to get people killed.
But there's not even a risk to reward situation in which this makes sense.
No.
There's like the if any efficiency you'd have gotten modernizing a system is not worth the people that could die from you not getting it right in a rush to do it in 3 months. So from my perspective, it seems like they go in there, they disingenuously say there are 250-year-old people, knowing that's not the truth. Use that as a reason to rewrite it, save money by people dying because they weren't able to, they got kicked out of the system, they got invalidated, and they weren't able to collect, and then we didn't have to pay them out for Social Security. And that's their version of efficiency. That's the dark prediction, if they don't just cancel the project and say it was all just a joke, which has kind of happened a few times too.
Yeah, canceling the project. So another prediction that we always, or that in part of our model is success or failure when the project is finished, right? Whether the project finishes successfully and the rewrite goes into production or the project gets canceled, everyone involved with the rewrite leaves the company. That's a standard prediction. When you okay a rewrite, everyone involved will leave the company either due to success or failure after the rewrite finishes. And I think that's a pretty safe prediction here as well. They will either declare success and leave, or they will declare failure and leave. But nobody involved in this project will stay past this project.
Another good prediction. Well, good. Luckily, we'll have this recorded.
Yes.
We can look back in 6 months and see what happened.
We will do a recap show. All right.
That was a good deep dive.
That was a little dark,
topic.
But all right.
I'm really hoping for some great comments on this episode.
I would love to be wrong.
Right.
I would love for somebody to tell me how this all makes sense.
Yeah.
And for me to not, and for no one to die. Those would be what I would love. More no one dying and less, if I'm going to put it in order. Right. Thank you all for listening. I'm Jeffrey Sherman.
And I'm Isaac Askew, and this is Never Rewrite.